So before the video does start, in case you guys aren't aware, we have officially partnered up with GamerStop. We've been a partner for a few months now, and a lot of people have been supporting the channel by using my creator code ESPADA. If you want to get 10% off anything you see on your screen right now, as of me making this video, they just dropped 2 new cups, the Waifu Cup X Bricky. Look at that artwork. If you yourself want to get a Waifu Cup, you can pick it up for $25. Use code ESPADA, 10% off. They also just dropped the Teacher Cup for Season 3 of the Waifu Cups. And look at that. If you got a thing for teachers, you don't want to miss this out. They are super limited. And once they're gone, they are gone. You can't get them anymore. So I'm going to make sure I pick them up. And if you guys want to support the channel, you can do that too by using code ESPADA. Alright lads, so it's that time of the month once more to update our monthly tier list. This time for the month of September. We're adding 5 new characters that came out in the month of August. And this time we only have 5 new characters to talk about. These 5 characters are actually pretty decent. Obviously the 2 end of month characters being the better of the 5 here. And then the other 3 are kind of just being like average type of characters. For the most part, this is going to be on the shorter side when it comes to tier list videos because there isn't like super much to talk about when it comes to these 5 characters. But as always, we are going to be splitting up the tiers by attributes. And again, for those wondering how we rank our characters, there's 3 main factors: their usability, damage output, and also survivability. So with that said, let's jump into it. Firstly, starting off with the heart tier list. So the first thing I want to do is change Chojiro's placement. I had him quite high, mainly due to the fact that he has a decent damage output and also has a pretty good strong attack here. A beam SA1, a distant AoE SA2, and a full screen strong attack 3 also with Havoc. So he was basically like the old God Kit character, but he has Captain Killer, so he's very limited on where you can use him. So instead, I'm going to basically just put him down here because realistically, I haven't used this character since he came out, and I feel like he can be used, sure, but I feel like he's very limited on where you can actually use him. These characters I see myself using more often, so I'm going to move down Shojiro. At the same time, I'm also going to move up Yuha. I do think for normal PvE content, I would prefer to use Misaki and also Tokinada. I guess maybe when it comes to altering IT, for example. But I'm actually seeing myself use Yuha more, especially because it's SA2. If you don't know, we already talked about it when obviously he first came out. Yuha's SA2 is the boost skill. And he has a Vortex, he has Paralysis, and also Drain on every single attack, except his SA2. But the SA2 does come with a boost with the booster skill. And currently, he is the 3rd character in the game right now to have that booster skill. And it increases everyone's attack, focus, and defense by 43% instead of the usual 32%. This right here, very big, especially if you are someone that lacks Shinji and also Rukia, the other 2 characters. So I'm moving this character up mainly for the sole purpose of him being used in Guild Quest. I see myself using it in actually a lot of weeks just to boost my main damage dealer characters. Even when he does not killer, he's still going to be a very viable character, and I think for any new players out there, all you really need to tackle some of the harder content is maybe have Yama, maybe just have a good lead, a good NAD character, and then throw in either a Shinji, Yuha, or also Rukia. And because again, there's only 3 of them with that booster skill, I feel like he actually has a lot of value when it comes to using him in Guild Quest. And again, for me, he's the only one I have, so I do see myself using him quite a bit, and that's why I feel like his value is actually better than some of the characters in the S tier. That's why I've moved him up to just above Misaki. Again, I think for normal PvE content, because Misaki is ranged and also Tokinada and Ginchu, they have that advantage over Yuha. But you know, Yuha also has Drain and Paralysis, which also really helps in Guild Quest when you can inflict stats ailments. It's going to, you know, heal himself back up the potential full HP and also lock the enemy place for like 7 or so seconds. So Yuha, you know, despite being a Brave Battle character, is actually showing that he is a good PvE character at the same time too. Other than that though, that's basically the only changes that I want to make for the heart tier list. Now, moving on to the new characters. Our first one, Toshiro, a very weird and unfortunate character. So for Toshiro, I'm going to put him right here above Mugetsu. Now, Toshiro does have a pretty good damage output, since he does have a 40% Berserker with an additional 20% strong attack damage if you are a Heart Captain, and that applies to your team too. And he also does do more damage to enemies that are inflicted with a status ailment, so again, that's also pretty good, and he increases his team's damage too. So he's kind of a team player if you are using him alongside other Heart Captains, which you will notice there aren't that many to be fair. He's basically like one of the only few that you're going to be seeing used in type of content, then he will be buffing them. But despite having a pretty good damage output, again, with more damage to enemies inflicted with status ailment, he doesn't really have the best strong attack here. His SA1 is range collision, SA2 is a beam forward, and that's good. Again, preferably you do want to have as your strong attack 1, and then he does have a full screen SA3. But with no Havoc and also no recharge, because keep in mind, this character does not have recharge built into the character, because he does have a soul trait, a mind droplet drop rate plus 30% soul trait. So essentially this character wasn't even designed to be used for the most part. He's basically set up to be used as a Link. Sure, you can use him, and sure, he's not going to be the worst character out there, but I don't think this character has anything really going for him that you would have a reason to even use him outside the fact that he is a pretty good soul trait. And even then, if you do use him as a soul trait, depending on the content you are doing, if you're trying to do epic raids, for example, you are sacrificing, you know, extra recharge and extra damage. So this is a character that essentially has been designed to only be used in Droplet Zone as a Link or as a character. But mainly he's just been designed to be used as a Link, so there isn't really much to say about this Toshiro. Sure, he's not that bad, but I think he's just a very average character that is just there to be a Link, essentially. And even then, the Link itself, I don't think is even that great. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a time in the future, anytime at all, where people are going to be that toxic, only asking for droplet characters with a full set of droplet Links. I just don't see that. It's not that big of a deal. The increase isn't even that significant. So even as a Link, I think, like, it's just not even needed. So he's a very weird character and doesn't have much going for him. Next up, we have Cien, the new Safari character. Cien grants, where are we going? Of course, as the nature of most end of month characters, you are instantly going into the S tier, but where exactly are we going to place you? Now, some could argue he is an SS tier character, but I feel like I'm going to put him right at the top of S, just below Isane. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because I feel like Isane has more usage going for it, and at the same time, she is also a more safer character to use, and she's helping out the team. Now, Cien is a very interesting character, a character that we haven't really received before. Before we talk about his strong attacks, this character works better in co-op content, because his whole gimmick here, he only has a 40% Berserker with Frenzy +1, which sure is good enough to actually clear content. You can obviously do a lot of damage with that, but most of his damage comes from being able to hit enemies that have been inflicted with a status summon, more specifically burn and also lacerate, which is what this character can do. Every attack that he has inflicts burn and also lacerate, and he does have two skills that make it easier for him to inflict status summons. The first one, increased status summon chance against any mined enemy, so that means any time you use this character, you're always going to have that increased chance of inflicting a status summon, and I really do like that. Both of the status summons are obviously damage over time status summons, so burn and also lacerate. That itself is also doing damage to the enemies, and then he also does have Immolator and Lacerator, where every 5 seconds you have a 12% chance to inflict burn and also lacerate. So he is a character that if you do use him, you're going to have a very easy time inflicting status summons, and when you do, you're essentially doing 100% more damage to those enemies. So by himself, again, pretty good character. You can use him to clear single player content just fine, especially because the damage output that he does have, the 40% Berserker, in single player content is just fine. In some of the harder content, like let's say IT for example, where he is kind of designed to be used here, he is also going to have a pretty easy time, but you kind of want to have 3 other CNs to go alongside him, and that's where this character really does get the shine alongside the same character. If you play co-op content, if you're using 6th Anniversary Aizen, or even, you know, this Yoruichi, even Nini, again, they're all kind of just doing their own thing. But in Cien's case, they just work very well together, and the more Ciens in your lobby, the better. And I kind of like that, because it encourages you to play with Cien. And again, because he is a super Linkster character, you kind of want to do that when farming IT. Because when there's 4 Ciens and everyone's inflicting status summons, and you have the Immolator, so 12% chance to inflict status summons on any enemy every second, you're constantly going to be inflicting status summons, and that's where he gets most of his damage output. And his strong attacks themselves are actually pretty good. His SA1 is a 3000 length beam forward. Again, good strong attack. Preferably, I want that as an SA1, but it's not a bad SA2. And his SA3 is an above 4 skin strong attack, since he does have Havoc. However, again, the problem comes with his SA1 being that split beam SA1 that 7th Anniversary Ichigo has. It's not that good of a strong attack. It doesn't ruin him, but it definitely does bring him down just a tad bit. So I'm putting him at the top of S, mainly just because of that. Again, very high value character. He is a super Linkster character, so he does have more value compared to most characters in the game, because you are kind of forced to use him to farm links or potions. But as a character itself, I do like him, but I think he kind of relies on having other Cients in his lobby. In addition to that, he also is not immune to any status summons, and he doesn't really have the greatest survivability. I did see myself die a few times with him. So that's why I'm only putting him at the top of S. Again, you could argue for him to be higher than Isane, but I feel like Isane's survivability, and Isane itself also does have a lot of damage going for her. I feel like that just outweighs Cien just a tad bit. But depending on you guys' feedback in the comments below, I might move him up to next month to maybe top of S, and maybe potentially even SS, because he also does have Sharpshooter. And maybe if enough people shout at me, I might move him up to SS, but I feel like S tier, like top of S, is just for him. I feel like maybe if he was given a better strong attack 1, he might have been an SS character. But regardless, Cien is definitely a good character, and someone you definitely want to have in your account if you ever want to farm inheritance trials. And with that, that's basically the hard tier list. So now let's start talking about the power tier list. So what exactly are we going to be doing here? Well, no new character came out this month, so there's no new character to add. All we're going to do is update the tier list and maybe move up and down some characters. For starters, our first character we're moving is actually going to be this version of Love. And the reason for that is because most recently, we just got a human IT. That's the first time we have it. And right now, as far as human killers do go, this character is basically the only really good one. And he is a good character in this current IT. Previously, the reason why I had him in S tier is because he is a good character. You're just very limited on where you can use him because there isn't that many content that have human enemies. The only time you go against humans essentially is in Arena, which is what he was made for, to be fair, so that's obviously a good thing about him. But essentially, it's only in Guild Quest and Senkamon. But now we're starting to see more humans get added to the actual PVE part of the game, like IT, for example. It means his value has been increased, in my opinion, and because of that, I'm actually going to move him to, like, up here. I think he's actually great. At the same time, because we now have access to someone like Yamamoto, who's a very powerful nuke for Guild Quest, you can actually benefit from using this character as a side character because he has a good damage output, fast strong attacks, and all 3 strong attacks that he does have really good range. So he makes for a very good side character to use alongside someone like Yamamoto. So that's basically the main reason why I'm moving him up. I feel like his value has increased. And if we ever see more Quincy enemies, I will then do the same for this Hallibel. Right now, we do see Quincy enemies, but it's essentially only in droplet zone. And that doesn't really matter all too much because it don't matter who you use there, everyone's going to clear it just fine. But the second we do see a Quincy IT, I definitely will be moving Hallibel up a tad bit. Other than that, I'm also just going to move this Momo up above these 2 characters. Again, just for IT purpose, good nav character, booster, and also does have an increased chance of inflicting status elements against any technique enemy. Other than that, that's basically the list. SS tiers basically staying the exact same. I guess because I did do my recent top 10 list, I said Kenny was actually better. For the longest of time, I had been saying that Kenny, Ichigo, and also the Kisuke are basically tied for 3rd place for the most part. And they're all kind of just, it really depends on who you ask who is better. Again, Ichigo technically has more usability here because he has 2 killers. Yes, Kenpachi is a better character per se, but in terms of usability, I think Ichigo has more going for him. But I feel like, you know what, Kenny's gameplay is just significantly better that I'm just going to move him up. And again, depending on who you ask, you might even do this, for example. But for now, I think Kenny is going to be the 3rd best power character. So with that said, let's move on to the Mind tier list. And similar to the power attribute, there isn't really anything to add here. No new character got added, but we did get a resurrection for the Mind Nelio, who I have in B tier. And it was actually a pretty good resurrection, so I'm going to move her up just a tad bit higher. That's basically about it. She essentially got just more Berserker, so now her strong attacks do a tad bit more damage. But at the same time, I'm also going to do a little cheeky push and do Kisuke a tad bit higher. Again, for those that missed the SS tier, these are your SS tier characters. Eventually, I will move down Ichigo and Noel. I feel like their value is slowly fading. The reason why they are this high is due to their strong attack kit, strong attack damage, and also killers. Noel does have 2 killers, which therefore makes her more usable in normal content. And Ichigo has, again, good strong attack damage, good kit. He himself is still a very solid character. Good in co-op content, even IT, for example, when he doesn't inflict spasms because he is boosting your entire team. And at the same time, the character itself, for Guild Quest at least, is still one of the best boosters to use for the melee and ranged character week and also the melee and ranged Soriba week. Lisa, though, really high damage output, doesn't really matter about killer, and might actually get even more better in the future since the Quincy killer might become more useful. Recently, KLF just added a new inheritance trial quest where there are human enemies, so I think they're bound to eventually add Quincy enemies, and that's where this Lisa really is going to shine. And then, of course, 7th anniversary Ichigo, really powerful strong attack kit. SA2 is absolutely amazing, SA3 is great, high damage output, complete stats immunity, one of the best characters in Guild Quest right now, absolutely breaking the game mode, and now we're just a very solid character, even in Arena 2. And then moving on to the speed attribute, this month we got one new character, and that is the Kido version of Soifon. Now, Soifon for a mid-month premium character is actually pretty decent, better than I expected, and that's mainly because she is technically an arena character, so she does get some skills that technically make her better than most like normal characters. Realistically, the only thing that she is lacking is Havoc, and you know, depending on how you look at it, that might be a deal breaker to you, but at the same time, I think she comes with nice benefits with the, you know, pretty high damage output, 40% Berserker, 20% more strong attack damage to speed attribute captains, which does actually affect 5th anniversary Byakuya, and of course herself, that's 60% Berserker, with guard break, more damage to paralyzed enemies, a pretty decent strong attack damage kit, and what I really like, poise and also long strider, and because she's a Soifon, it does mean she actually gets naturally more built-in flash steps. She has 4 flash steps essentially, making it a very fast character. Again, the only thing she's lacking right now is essentially Havoc, and that's about it. So because of that, believe it or not, I was going to put at the top of A, but after some discussions with my friends, I think I'm actually going to put in S tier. And despite having less range than some of these characters, I think she's actually going to go right about here. Could move her up, to be fair. Could move her up. Actually, I'm going to move you up too. I think so. Oh, let's do that. Retsu, very solid character, and in your case, I'm going to let's just put you there. Maybe you could argue be higher. I might be overrating her a tad bit, but I do think Soifon is actually kind of a sleeper character that no one's really looking at. Rightfully so, to be fair. Again, she is a premium character. Visuals aren't anything super amazing. She herself isn't, like, again, anything super crazy, but she's a good character. The only thing she's lacking in, I guess, is the, I'm going to do that, actually, is the killer. She only has a ESPADA kill, which kind of does hurt her a tad bit, so actually I'm going to go ahead and do that, because these do actually have a good killer and do have an increased chance of inflicting said status on. So I'm going to put Soif on there, top of S, because, yeah, good damage output, great mobility, and that's basically about it. The only thing that's dragging it down just a tad bit is lack of Havoc and also an ESPADA killer. But you know what, in the ESPADA killer guild quest, though, she's actually a pretty good character there. But other than that, that was basically this big tier list. And lastly, we have the technique one. First change I'm going to make is put Orihime a tad bit higher than actually these two characters. I think Orihime is great, showing really good value as a Link Sword character. Whenever you use her, she just provides great support, good damage output too. But the shield with the multi-barrier and also the heal, and then the team heal every time you enter another map is completely unmatched. Despite the technique attribute having access to someone like Retsu, who is a more powerful healer, I think Orihime's value is actually really, really good. And the kit that she does have isn't bad, so I'm just moving up a tad bit to be above Nemu and also the Renji. But at the same time, depending who you ask, you might actually want to be higher than the Grimmjow. But for now, I think she's going to be top of S tier, right there with Grimmjow. But now, moving on to our newest characters, we firstly have the Jushiro, who's actually, again, surprisingly good. Now, again, I was going to put him in A tier, but after this few discussions, I'm actually going to put him in S tier. Now, why are we doing that? Well, damage output, again, is actually pretty good for a mid-month premium character. We are starting to see that with mid-month characters. They do have really good damage outputs. What they do lack is Havoc, and sometimes they don't have the most ideal killer. But regardless of that, it still does make him actually really usable. In this case, Jushiro does have a 60% Berserker, which again is pretty high. Keep in mind, though, he cannot inflict any status ailments, and then he also does have a 20% strong attack damage buff to technique attribute captains. So essentially, he basically has an 80% Berserker, and that again does also buff a very powerful SS tier character, that being the Safwi Retsu. In addition to that, he actually has a good strong attack damage kit. If you saw our test play video, he did make it the furthest. When it came to the other two characters that came with it, the Soifon and also Toshiro, he's immune to 2 status elements, freeze and also poison, which is good for the guild quest he wants to be used in, because that's what he is. He's a guild quest character. Because in guild quest, he then has a 50% extra killer effect, which is 30% outside of guild quest, and also more range damage, 30% to be exact in guild quest, 10% outside of guild quest. Unfortunately, though, in his case, he does have a stamina to kill, which kind of, again, brings him down. Very similar to Soifon, right? Good damage output, pretty good kit, and is usable compared to some of these other characters, but he doesn't have a good killer, and he doesn't have Havoc, and that kind of brings him down a bit. But I think the damage output that he does have, I think does bring him up a tad bit, and his usability, again, in guild quest is still actually pretty good. So what I'm going to do here is actually put him... I'm going to put him here for now, like above or like below Mayuri, because they're both similar characters for the most part. They both only want to be used in guild quests, but they still have good damage output, good range. Obviously, Mayuri's case, he has weaken and stuff like that. So he's a bit of a weird one. He's a bit of a weird one, to be honest, but I still think he has stuff going for him that does make him usable, and that's why I'm going to put him in S tier. And then lastly, let's talk about Roka. Now, instantly, top of S tier. I'm going to be honest, Roka is actually really good. In certain ways, you could make a case for her to be an SS tier character. Now, before you jump down my neck and, start shouting in with your pitchforks, Roka's only bad thing about her is her strong attack hit, right? She has a kind of mediocre SA1. Her SA2 doesn't do the fastest amount of damage because it is the Tracking Vortex, which is great in the case that she wants to inflict stat elements, right? Tracking Vortexes are good, but unfortunately she has the no distant AoE. She's missing the first part that makes 6th Anniversary Aizen, 1000-Year Blood Wu Yamamoto so overpowered. That 960 distant AoE into the Tracking Vortex. So because of that, that's the only reason why I'm not putting an SS tier, because a strong attack hit isn't really the greatest. But having said that, in gameplay, if you saw my showcase, it doesn't really matter that much because she still does what she wants to do. She can clear content just fine. She clears content safer than most of these characters here, and you could even argue more than these top 3 characters in SS tier because she provides great crowd control, constantly inflicting stat elements, which is going to further increase the damage that she can dish out. And because of the amount of damage she can dish out, honestly, it doesn't even make the strong attack hit that bad because she still can do damage. The problem with that SA1 and 2 is technically not the most consistent damage, but again, with the skills, very, very powerful, because if you don't know, she has Frenzy +1 with an additional 40% Berserker, with the fact that when you do inflict a stat element, she can inflict weakening, you do get an 80% stat boost to your spiritual pressure stat. Very powerful skill. It makes a hit very hard, and then in combination of that, when you are at full stamina, you then have 40% more strong attack damage. The idea for this character is that the SA1 and 2 is going to be inflicting the stat elements, and they combo very well with each other. Like, if you actually use this character, using the SA1 on a bunch of enemies that are grouped up with the SA2, it almost just kills whoever you're going against, right? Even a boss, for example. And then at SA3, when you have the spiritual pressure boost and are at full stamina, that SA3 just does a ridiculous amount of damage. So Roka, really, really good in the crowd control aspect, the damage aspect. She's better than, again, I think most people are giving her credit for. And at the same time, what also makes this character is that she's also very safe to use. You might be surprised I'm putting her above Grimmjow, but Grimmjow sure has a great strong attack kit, does have some good damage, but he has like no survivability, right? But then in Roka's case, she has complete stat immunity, which you can share to your entire team. She then also has a team revive on her soul bomb, and then she also does have a team heal, a 20% team heal every time you into another map. So Roka is this high, and again, you could argue for her to be higher, to be fair, because just great crowd control, good damage output, and also just great survivability. She is a very good character and a very safe one at that too. Personally, for me, I'd rather use her over any character in S tier when it comes to clearing content, because she's going to do it safer, and she's also at the same time going to clear equally as fast. Like, people are downplaying her kit, but it doesn't matter. If you actually use her, she's going to clear just as fast as these other characters here. And again, she's going to do it a lot safer. At the same time, she also does have Sharpshooter, and because she has the Tracking Vortex, you could hypothetically use in every single week of guild quest, where you can then, you know, stand in the stat element pool and make your team immune to stat elements. So as a new account too, she has a lot of value going for it too, right? You could use her, and then you can use 2 Knight characters, one as a boost, one as like a main DPS, and she'll help you clear almost every single guild quest, which I really do like, and at the same time, she also has Sharpshooter. So Roka really, really pushing the SS tier. Depending on the feedback of this video, I might move her up to SS tier, but again, the thing that's like right now pushing her away from SS tier is the kit, because there is some good things about it. Again, it does have its usage, but at the same time, you know, had she maybe had a 3000 lamp beam, maybe the distant AoE into the Tracking Vortex, then she would have instantly been the best tech character. But she does have problems with her kit. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't ruin her, but it can just maybe stopping her from being an SS tier. For those that have Roka, you will know the value this character does have. She is good. For those that didn't pull for her, those that don't care about her and think that she's instantly trash because they saw she has range collision, you know, that's fine for not pulling on her, and that might be a reason to not use her. But to downplay Roka, it's just factually wrong. Like, she's very good, and I think she definitely deserves the top of the S tier. Again, could argue to be SS tier. But with that said, lads, that was basically the video for today, just going through every single tier list, heart, power, mind, technique, speed, etc. Again, on the shorter side of the tier list, because there isn't really much to talk about when it comes to these new characters. But hope you lads did enjoy the video. Again, if you stuck around to the end, I do appreciate it. And you lads can use code ESPADA to get yourselves some gamer subs. The 2 new waifu cups just dropped. I recommend picking up. I'm a big fan of their product. And if you want to support the channel, you can do that by using code ESPADA. Hope you lads did enjoy the video. And I'll see you lads next month for the next month's tier list, where hopefully we can get some fun, cool, and interesting characters.